Acting Governor of Niger State, Yakubu Garba, says banditry attacks are likely to affect agricultural production. This while on a condolence visit to Angowa Megero in Shiroro Local Council area of the state, where bandits killed no fewer than 13 persons. Mr. Garba, who had an interaction with community members and also assessed the situation, sympathized with them over the incident.
It has to affect the outcome of agricultural revolution of this very government, because the people who are predominant farmers have been chased away by these bandits. So you don't expect us to have adequate bumper harvest or season as expected. Let me tell you that 75% of Shiroro is in the other side of Lakma, while the population is in this side. That's the vast land that has been completely deserted by our people. How do you expect us to have adequate bumper season as expected? It's not possible.
It all started suddenly, and since it started, it has been from one nightmare to the other. We are always attacked. Our people in the village don't sleep with their two eyes closed. Sometimes in the middle of the night, these bandits start chasing them, and most of them will sleep in the bushes. Some pregnant women will. In fact, there was a time.
Such an incident that happened off deployment and off community, settlements. That is why it is important that we initiate investigation to understand exactly what happened.
Us from growing economically, we cannot even do other activities as normal because we are all living in fear. So as we are living in this community, we are just living on God, trusting that the government will be able to do something tangible to be able to cope this situation. And I think if the government can be able to put this as their number one priority, because there is nothing you can give to us, the poor masses, aside giving us our ability to sleep and wake up well. Because if we don't sleep and wake up with security, we cannot do nothing.
Attacks like this is no longer new to the people. But every time there's an attack, another family is sent into mourning. The people here are paying with their lives for simply having mineral resources in their area. Economic activities are grounded because they can no longer return to the hectares of farmlands that they've been cultivating. Chanimibami, TVC News, Kuta.
And now to Zamfara State, where at least 13 persons have lost their lives and several houses washed away. Livestock, bridges and other valuables were not spared as flood ravaged Gumi Local Council area of the state. Theophilus Darifai reports.
This is what is left of Gumi community after a devastating downpour that caused massive destructions. Although Gumi is one of the local government areas in Zamfara State predicted to experience flooding this year, however, communities in the area have been experiencing flooding over the years, which sometimes results in the loss of lives and properties. Now, in the most recent heavy downpour, which lasted for several hours, has led to the death of 13 persons and properties destroyed. Despite the devastation, all hope seems not to be lost as government and individuals are now reaching out to the victims. The most recent is the member representing Gumi Bukuin Federal Constituency at the National Assembly, Suleiman Gumi, who visited the affected communities and confirmed the level of destruction to journalists.
There was a prolonged rainfall, which lasted for about 21 hours, and which resulted to the heavy flood, which I think was never experienced in this area. We've had floods before, but this one is the mother of all floods for this community. Almost farmland, all farmlands in the downstream area of Gumi, it's all flooded. We've lost animals, houses, and worst of all, we lost about 13 people, from houses falling and water taking away children. So we lost a lot of people and properties.
In giving hope to the people, the lawmaker donates relief items to the victims while assuring them that relevant authorities will soon come to their aid.
I spoke with the DG NEMA and they have promised to act swiftly and bring succor to the people. The state government also has sent a delegation to take statistics of what is happening, and I'm sure the response will soon be felt from the state government too. At the same time, what we can do, we are already doing so that the people can have some little succor. People are displaced. A lot of families are in schools where they are taking refuge, and the worst of all, their food is being destroyed by the rain, so they are living now hand to mouth.
Theophilus Darufai, TVC News, Gusau.
And succors gradually come in the way of Nigerians affected by flood across the country as the federal government has begun the distribution of relief materials to heavily impacted communities following a comprehensive assessment of recent incidents. According to a statement from the National Emergency Management Agency, teams from the zonal, territorial and operational offices have increased the pace of flood impact assessments in states including Jigawa, Gombe, Bauchi, Sokoto, Zamfara, Ondo, Katsina, and Lagos during the last week. In communities experiencing drought episodes in Adamawa, Borno, Cross River, Taraba, and Yobe states, bringing untold hardship, NEMA is also distributing food and other relief materials. The federal government says it remains committed to providing timely relief to affected communities while it continues to raise awareness on disaster reduction. For more perspectives on this development, I'm joined by environment activist Desmond Majekudumi. So, Majekudumi, thank you for joining us on TVC News at 10. How do you explain what's happening right now? We're reporting flooding in some parts of the country, sweeping houses away, even people dying, and then at the same time, there is terrible drought affecting agriculture in some other parts.
Yes, well, the lawmaker said it all. As our hearts go out to the people that have been affected by this terrible, terrible tragedy, lives lost, homes, livelihoods destroyed, farming capability diminished. He said it all in that this is unprecedented. He said they've never had this type of rainfall before. Now, this has been predicted many years ago by the World Meteorological Scientists under the auspices of the International Panel for Climate Change. They said that if we continue doing what we're doing against nature, against the environment, that nature is going to respond in this way. In fact, the Secretary General of the United Nations, he said that mankind is waging war against nature, and this is suicidal because nature always fights back. She gives you what you give her. It's the fundamental law of retribution. What you sow is what you reap. It's there in all the scriptures. It's called, in this case, climate change, global warming, where you can have what they call rain bomb. It's no longer rainfall in some areas. They call it rain bomb, the kind of rain that will just fall unprecedented in the history of that location. And then you travel a few hundred kilometers, you see an area, no rain at all. This is what happens when we mess around too much with the wonderful miracle of creation, God Almighty's system that supports life, that gives us the rain in a steady way, in a manageable way, in a seasonable way.
Indeed.
That gives us all our life support.
I hear you very clearly. Is this something that can still be salvaged? What can be done in the short and long term?
This is an excellent question. And I do believe that we shall be doing the right things. We're seeing some very good signs now coming out in our Nigeria. We're seeing a lot of moving towards getting cleaner energy systems. This compressed natural gas, whilst it's still a fossil fuel, while it still causes problems, especially if it leaks, it's much cleaner than the other systems, and it's cheaper, and we have it in abundance, and I see there's a move for that. That move has to be far, far more aggressive because it's no longer a crisis, as the Secretary General of UN said. It's an emergency. And then, of course, we need to retain our forests, protect our forests. Do you know that we have protected forest areas that are being degraded every day, where trees are being cut? They're not supposed to be cut. We're supposed to protect those forests as if our lives depend on it, because guess what? Our lives and our children's lives do depend on it. And then we need to plant more and more trees, hundreds of millions of trees. We're seeing some initiatives in that direction. But for the immediate thing, there has to be flood relief systems, which we're seeing is going on in Zamfara, which is encouraging. But we need to build far more canals. We need to not block the drainage systems, because nature has a way of draining herself as well, through the mangrove areas, through the streams. And we must make sure that those streams and those rivers are not silted up. We've been cutting too much vegetation on the side of these streams and rivers, and that allows the erosion to now pour more sand, and the rivers and streams can no longer fully evacuate the flood water that comes in there. We must start living more harmoniously with nature, and it's a wake-up call to humanity in general and to Nigeria. You reap what you sow, so we should be careful.
Absolutely, and hopefully we can begin to match words with action in seeing some sort of a national emergency in this regard and build policies and systems around it. That's our time. Environment activist Desmond Majakodumi, thank you so much for sharing with us. We'll return with more stories after this break. Stay with us.